Final Fantasy XII is one of the most unique games in the Final Fantasy series, and despite its good scores and sales, I often feel like it does get sort of overshadowed by its more popular counterparts. I love many games in the Final Fantasy series, but 12 will always be my favorite. It's literally a single-player game that plays like an MMO. You would think playing a single-player game that feels like an MMO would be kind of boring, but let me tell you, they really did pretty good on the combat here. There's just something that's just feels right about it. Like, if you're familiar with the term boxing in MMOs, that's when you control like multiple characters. You're basically playing by yourself, but you have multiple accounts running. That's sort of how this feels, only it's done really well. This gambit menu, which is sort of a command menu that you can set all your characters up with, like say if a enemy is weak to fire, you can set your character to cast Fire on it, for example. You start out with only like a few of these commands, but I'm pretty sure you could just buy them from shops as you go on. So the more you progress in the story, the more options of commands you'll eventually collect for your characters. You're going to be using the menus a lot in this game because you have 6 main characters. You always control one, and you always have 2 with you. I mean, you could go solo if you want, but why would you? I very much look at this game as Final Fantasy's starting point to transcending from turn-based gameplay to action gameplay. I started with the gameplay section in the first part of the video because I feel like that's the strongest part of the game. It has really good gameplay that you're not really going to find in another game. This was my first Final Fantasy game I got truly into just because of the gameplay alone. I really like the way it was set up. There's actually 2 versions of this game. There's the original OG version, and there's the international job system, which I think was only in Japan, but then they remade that in the remasters, and so we got the Zodiac Age. So I'm going to first talk a bit about the original version, then I'll go through how I feel about the Zodiac Age. I would assume why this game often gets overshadowed by other games in the series is that, well, I kind of feel like the story is a little forgettable to a degree. The story is very political and has a big focus on like a war and trying to reclaim a kingdom, corruption with the government and all this. A lot of the main villains, as much as I play these games, I often can't remember their names. Aside from like one. Another reason could be the characters. So I personally enjoy the characters. I could see how, like, if you come off of like 7, you think Cloud Strife. If you play 13, you think Lightning. In this one, you don't really think of any particular character. You kind of think of all 6 of them. Because none of them really like stand out like big time. They're all just kind of part of a group. Not a single one seems like the main character. They're all sort of the main character. With that being said, Balthier's the best character. He's awesome, alright? He is the leading man, as he says. Then you have Vaan, who is sort of the face of the game, who is technically the main character. He's I'm gonna go out there and change the world character. Even though he kind of comes off as a little annoyed, I still like him. Then you have Fran, who's the goth playboy buddy, who's also a amazing character for obvious reasons. Then you have Basch, who's your standard buff character, who has sort of a troubled past. You have Ashe, who's the lost queen and has to go reclaim her throne, and you have Penelo, the sweet character who's just along for the ride. She really doesn't get character development at all. I would definitely say Ashe is the most important character, but she won't be able to accomplish anything without the rest of the characters, so they're all just sort of this misfit group trying to like save the kingdom. I don't want to spoil like any of the story, so I won't go any further deeper with other characters. I'll just say that there are some other cool characters you're gonna run into. I remember playing this game and just getting completely lost in it because it's a really big game. Like, this is free roaming, you can go wherever you want. Like I said, it's set up like an MMO, so there's zones, you can use your teleport stones and teleport all across the world. Every area has different levels of enemies. Like, if you wanted to, you could go off into a higher leveled zone and grind there if you wanted. more of a challenge, which I made quite a few mistakes in my early days playing this game, running into areas I really shouldn't have been in yet and getting obliterated by high-level mobs. I remember when we first got this game and me and my brother would take turns playing it. Like, we had different profiles and stuff, so we were building our characters in different ways, and like one of us would stop playing and then watch the other one start playing, because it was very interesting to see how the other person like would overcome like a boss or whatever with different characters. The actual like character building, the skill tree in this game, the license board, is very interesting, which is the biggest difference between the OG game and the Zodiac Age. The OG game, you had this blank board for like every character, but they all had the same board. And as you went, you'd spend points to unlock one any direction on those boards. So you just kind of built your characters blindly. Like, you could end up building the character up to like heavy armor, not know it, and I guess they're the tank now. Build them down and they get a bunch of spells. Well, I guess they're the red mage. Though if you did it right, you could kind of break the game. Like, oh, you found Kiraga. Well, just give everyone Kiraga so everyone can heal. I think like towards the end of the game, I literally had everyone in heavy armor and had like the best healing spells. Like, once you max everyone out, everyone's a god. Playing through this game and like figuring out like how the weapons work, like axes can do like low to heavy damage. They're kind of the random damage weapon. Guns are kind of suck. But the one thing good about guns is that it doesn't base its damage off of your stats, so it's going to do the same damage for any character, so you could give a gun to like your healer, and they're going to do decent damage opposed to giving them a staff. The biggest part of the game, other than the story, but I feel like most people who play this game know what the actual good part of the game is, and that's the bounty hunts. You go into the bar, you go to the bounty board, and you pick up these random bounties. You get like a little sketch of whatever monster it is you're hunting, and you get a reward for slaying it, obviously. And some of them would have like special ways you'd have to get them to spawn, like, oh, show up in this area while it's raining, so you just have to go in and out of the area till it rained. Some of them can be incredibly hard. I will say that. In fact, like the strongest monsters in the game are on the bounty board, so that's very much the big part of the game. There's nothing like getting a bounty board and it has no like sketch. You have no idea what it is, and then you're going through a snowstorm and there's the giant creature. It's gonna one-shot you or hit you with tons of status effects, and if you don't have your gambits set up right, you're gonna get slayed very easily. Like I said, the gambits are a big part of the game, and if you are good with them, the game will pretty much play itself. Like, if you know exactly what you'll need in the fight, set your characters up perfectly, you can just sit back and watch them go. Or if you want, you can turn the gambits off on the character you're playing and just have complete control the whole time. Which reminds me that there are like two ways to play this game. You could have it in wait mode, where as soon as you open the menu, time will freeze. Or you could have it in active mode, which originally when I played in wait mode, but then once I played through on Zodiac Age, I used active mode, and let me tell you, that's a much funner mode, because it definitely feels even more like an MMO, because everything's still going on. Your character's like auto-attacking while you're trying to go through your magics and use abilities and stuff. But I definitely would recommend wait mode while you're learning the game, so you can kind of get used to it. Or if you like more of a turn-based feel where you have more time to think. With you having only being able to have 3 characters out at a time, you definitely have to make sure you alternate your characters, because you don't want, like, you can't play the same 3 characters all the time, because the standby characters do not get any form of XP. So you have to make sure to switch them out, otherwise you're going to have like a bunch of weak characters and a bunch of strong characters. You don't want that. What I like to do, I like to split my 6 characters into 2 teams. Make a tank, a DPS, and a healer for each team. It works out pretty well until like one like characters dies and I have to switch them out, and then it kind of throws the balance off a bit. But for the most part, it works. even though when a character starts off, it seems very obvious like what kind of class they would be, but you don't have to go that route at all if you don't want to. For example, you can make Basch a white mage, and he'd still be a really good white mage. His stats might not be like top tier, like Penelo or something, but in the end, that's sort of min-maxing. Your characters are going to be fine for the most part. If you want like a simple basis on status, like Vaan's like your main man. He's good at pretty much anything. Balthier, he's kind of weird actually. He has like a lot of magic, but he's not very good at magic. Fran has a lot of vitality, but other than that, she's sort of the middle ground character. She's not like great at anything, but she's not bad at anything either. Basch is obviously the heavy hitter. He's good at strength. Ashe has like the strongest magic, so she makes a good wizard, and Penelo, she's the good support. She's great at healing. For the most part, your stats are only really affected by your gear. So like I said, if you want to make Basch a white mage, make him a white mage. It's okay. It's not going to be some dramatic effect. You're not going to like ruin your party by any means. Pretty much any character can play any role. I'm saying classes now because chances are you'll play the Zodiac version, which in my opinion is the definitive version of the game. Like I like the OG version is great. That's what made me fall in love with the game, obviously. But the fact that with the Zodiac Age, there's actual classes. So instead of like having just some giant random board you're working on, it's boards dedicated for specific classes. There's 12 classes. Each character can be 2 classes. But there's also no limit to the amount of classes you can have. So you can make everyone a white mage if you wanted to. Just have some crazy setup. When I originally played Zodiac Age, I wanted to use all the classes, and I built my characters based on how I look at them and how the game kind of presents them. Because, like I said, in the original version, I just kind of had everyone as, like, everything. So I had Vaan as, like, a... what was it? Was it Shakurai? Is that what it's called? Mixed with a time mage, so a ninja that can slow down enemies and speed himself up. That just seemed amazing to me. Balthier, he ended up sort of my okay character. I kept him in his gun class because he just looks cool with a gun, but I wanted him as melee damage, so I made his second class a dragoon, because he just seems like a dude who would use a spear. So he's sort of the tanky, slower DPS. Fran I kept as the archer, and she ended up getting black mage. She kind of got the short stick and just kind of got the hand-me-down class that I had left, so she got black mage, which actually turned out pretty good, to be honest. She's a pretty good black mage mixed with archer. She became basically my only dedicated like range character. She doesn't hit things at all. Basch was obviously my tank. I made him like a knight monk, so he had tons of damage and tons of health. This man was like my best character. He destroyed things. And later on, when I had him like at max level, he knew some white mage stuff, so he's casted Kiraja and stuff. He was broken. Ashe I turned into my off tank, which I think in the original game she's meant to be an off tank. So she was a foe breaker, and also with her having good magic damage, I decided to add some magic in there as well. So I turned her into the red mage. So a foe breaker, red mage. She did pretty good, being able to take a hit with an axe and a shield. And also being able to cast magics when needed was very useful. Also, all 3 female characters start off with Cure for whatever reasons. She also kind of became a backup healer in case like things started to get bad. And Penelo was obviously my primary healer. She turned her into a white mage Bushi, which is a samurai, because samurais have really good magic power. So I basically try to boost her heals as much as possible, and she became so good at healing. Penelo and Basch were my 2 best characters in the group. I split the party into 2 teams, so I had Basch, Balthier, and Penelo on one, and Vaan, Fran, and Ashe on the other. Team 1, which I consider the stronger team, Basch, Penelo, Balthier, they were good at like single target damage, so they were great for like boss fights. My second team was more like AoE damage, so like with mobs. So just fighting like basic mobs, I could clear rooms pretty easily. You have Fran who's just blowing things up. You have Ashe who can throw in some extra magic if she needs to. And anything that somehow survives, Vaan's just going to start picking them off. I felt pretty satisfied with my class setups, considering I was using all 12 classes, which usually isn't recommended. You kind of want to build classes that work on each other, which I tried my best for the most part, and it pretty much worked. That's why I really, really loved this game. Like, the original version as well. Like, I love the original version, but I feel like the Zodiac version just made the game even better. Just the gameplay, the gambit system, the class system, the crazy bosses. Yzmat, who has like 50 health bars, incredibly hard. First time ever beating him was my last playthrough. Also, the environments are just really cool. The zones you go to, you get a lot of different biomes in this game, and the music is great throughout. Like, there's a lot of good music in this. Lots of enemies. Like, there's a bestiary, which I love. I love when games let you like read up lore on all the enemies you fight, and also like, for some, if you beat them enough, you'll unlock like extra pages in their bestiary, which talks about lore of like different things that have really nothing to do with them. I always enjoy like finding like the rare mobs that like spawn like for special reasons, like, oh, you're in critical health when you go in this area, and a special named ghost appears. I love that. There's also quite a bit where this game doesn't hold your hand at all, and you just have to like spend a lot of time to figure things out. Like side quests, for example, are not tracked in this game whatsoever. Like, if you run into an NPC, like, there's no like little bubble to let you know this is a quest giver or whatever. In fact, side quests are very like minimal in this game. There's only like a few. The only way you would find out if they're quests is if you just talk to every NPC, which I kind of like. I like the fact that it encourages you to go and like just talk to random citizens and learn like lore and stuff. But like I said, the quests aren't tracked, so if you talk to someone, you better just go straight and do it, because you'll probably forget and never get it done. For the most part, the quests are mostly just, oh, go and talk to this person in this area, and you'll learn like some little story or whatever. In fact, there's like one convoluted side quest that has you run around everywhere, which unlocks a fishing minigame, the only minigame in the game, which is locked behind a convoluted side quest to get an item to sell to unlock one of the stronger swords in the game, the Dragon Quest sword, which is another game I'll be making a video on really soon. Which, that brings me into the Bazaar. The way this game works, like, when you pick up like random loot from enemies, a lot of it is just trash to sell, but you have to sell it a certain way. So it's like, if you sell 5 feathers and 6 rocks or whatever, it will unlock a new item in the Bazaar for you to buy. But it doesn't tell you how. There's no recipe. You can kind of think of this as crafting in a way. Like, you have to basically look this stuff up. Like, there's no way you can figure out any of this unless you just try endless combinations of selling random garbage. Oh, you sold 2 rusted metal and 5 ancient stones? Here's a new sword. Which is really how you get like some of the stronger gear. But not the strongest though. The strongest weapons you get through RNG. The chests in this game respawn after you open them. Like, you'll go out of the area and come back in a little while and the chest will be back. But they'll have different items. For the most part, the chest will just give like, you know, a potion or whatever. But sometimes there's like a 1% chance it will have this overpowered weapon in it, or some really good spell. Which is one thing I didn't like. I miss, like, in the original game, you could just go to a magic shop and buy the magics. But in this, they put like all the magics in like chests and stuff, so there's a good chance you're not going to get all the magics. I remember trying to get like the Zodiac Spear, which in the original game was like the strongest weapon, but it was so stupid how to get it. You had to like get to one like halfway through the game without opening certain chests in like the earlier parts of the game. And if you did, it would never spawn. And once you got there, you had like a 5% chance of it even being in the chest. To where in this version, there's no certain way, you just have to get the chest to spawn, which is like a 1% chance. But the spear's guaranteed to be in there though. I spent like an hour running back and forth in the hallway trying to get it to spawn. I got it, which also reminds me of Zodiark, which is a very, very terrible boss. You have like a 5% chance to steal like the best sword in the game off him. So if he didn't have the sword when I stole off him, I would have to reload the game. And imagine how frustrating it is to keep reloading the game over and over to get that drop. But the boss is really hard and kills you. I did that several times. It was pretty awful, but I did it. I got the sword. The one strongest weapon I didn't get was like the bow, and that's in an invisible chest that has a 1% chance to spawn, and the bow has a 0.1% chance of being in it, or something like that. It is so unlikely, and like you would never find that if you didn't look it up. There's so many things like that in this game. I love it, but also hate it. The summons in this game are really cool. One thing you will notice is that this game has its own summons. Like there's no like Bahamut or Efrit. It's all different summons this time around. I don't really use the summons that much. What you really want the summons for, at least in the Zodiac version, is for like special abilities. Now in the original game, they didn't really do anything. You just kind of gave them to whatever character. So basically you would have like 2 each character. That's how you would probably do it. I always just based off of, like who would, like which summon like match with the character. So obviously I gave the Goth Playboy Bunny the Lord of Death. But this time, since the classes are separate, the Espers actually unlock special abilities. So like I said with Basch, one of his abilities was like Kiraja. So he had like a lot of good abilities that could only be locked by being linked with an Esper. So he had like 5 summons. Also, the Zodiac version, you actually can take control and play as the summon, opposed to in the first one, they just kind of stood around and waited for you to use their special attack. Now, talking about special attacks, let's talk about the Quickenings. The Quickenings are sort of like your character's like ultimate moves. I'm not really sure how to explain them. You start off and it's like, okay, you pick what Quickening to do, and it starts doing the animation. And then you have a timer, and you can activate the other character's Quickenings. Or you could like shuffle, which gives you a chance to, the character you already used the Quickening, you could use them again. And there's like 3 different types of Quickenings for each character. It's really random. I'm not even sure like what the proper way is to even do them. But sometimes you could get some really good chains. That's sort of the point. You have to keep, you're on a timer, so you have to keep activating them before your timer runs out. So if you can get lucky, you'll get this huge chain of Quickenings and just do massive damage. Sometimes if you do it right, it kind of breaks the fight completely. Like I managed to like kill one of the summons like real early in the game. Like it was in a cave that was already overpowered for me. I made it into his lair. It just did a bunch of Quickenings and was able to kill him. For someone who's never played the game, they're probably so confused just hearing me ramble on, but this game has a lot to do. And that's why I love it. Like, just the fact that you can make your characters so many combinations. The characters are fun, I enjoy them. They're not like these over-the-top, like, you know, like Cloud or whatever. There's just a nice little group of characters that I enjoyed. I don't think I really have much more to say, but definitely play it. If you are a fan of Final Fantasy and you've never played this one, give it a chance. If you like MMOs, I feel like you would probably like this because the gameplay is very similar. Definitely, if you just want a game where you can just get lost in it for a while, definitely play this game. Either version you want to play is great. Like, OG version, you know, having a lot of randomness to building your characters seems interesting to you. I'd say go to that. I prefer Zodiac version. I'm pretty sure that it's only Japanese, but you can get the international job system on PS2. If you want to play Zodiac Age, like, more retro, then do that too, I guess. But yeah, this game has endless combinations. You can play it many, many times, and it's always going to be a bit different. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. It felt really nice to just talk about this game because I don't know many people who play this. That's pretty much all I have to say, so until the next video, guys, I'll see you. Get